I am Blandine Bardeau and this is my studio session. I'm going to show you how to dispose of acrylic paints in a responsible way instead of throwing them down the drain. A palette or just a scrap piece of paper, some acrylic paint, a paintbrush, a bit of warm water, 3 jars with some water in them, pH neutral soap, in this case it's olive oil soap, coffee filters, gloves, some pH strips, tablespoon measurers, a proper face mask, an empty jar with a fennel, some kitchen roll, and finally the 2 most important items, some hydrated lime and some aluminium sulfate. So say you've been painting, you've been using acrylics on a palette to make something beautiful. And you've got your brush full of acrylic. So what you start doing is, instead of dipping it as it is in the water, you want to remove as much as you can from the brush with a kitchen towel. Then in one of the jars of water, you start cleaning your brush, and then you can use your soap. You use one of the other jars of water until it's quite clear. And then in the final one, in the third one, to make really sure that it's clear. So now you've got your 3 jars that have acrylic in it, and you put them all together in one. So what I do is, because acrylic tends to get stuck at the bottom of one, I kind of decant like this. And then the third one up. Okay, so now you have dirty water with acrylic. So you're going to mix some aluminium sulfate in the warm water that you've prepared, and you need half a tablespoon of aluminium sulfate to mix in the warm water. So I just mixed half a tablespoon of aluminium sulfate in some warm water, and then I'm gonna add it to the acrylic and water mixture. And we're going to put about 3/4 of a tablespoon of hydrated lime. And now you can see clearly that the acrylic has started to separate from the water. You can see it really well. And now you're going to have to wait about 2 hours, or you just wait until you can see the water separate from the acrylic completely. The acrylic is going to sink down. So I'm going to show you one that I've already left for 2 hours. So this one, you can clearly see the clear water and the acrylic at the bottom. What we do now, once it has separated, is that we test it with pH strips. And what we want is 7, or very close to 7. It's okay if it's 6 or if it's 8. If you're having trouble with the pH, one thing to remember is that 13 is alkaline, 1 is acid. So if you want the mixture to be more alkaline, you add more lime, hydrated lime. And if you want the mixture to be more acidic, you add aluminium sulfate. So now that we've got our mixture separated, we are going to sieve it. So you put a coffee filter in your colander and you pour the mixture in. And when everything has decanted, you can throw away the coffee filter in the bin, and you can throw the water in the drain. So it's not perfect because we're still putting pollution on landfill. And in an ideal world, I don't think we should really be using acrylics, but most people are. I also want to say that things like watercolors or gouache, they still have synthetic pigments in them. So you could be doing the same thing, and you can mix all of your residues with acrylics, everything, and then the same thing would happen with the pigments from any other types of paint. Not oils, by the way. If you live in a really hot country, you could just leave buckets of water with residue of paint, and the water would just evaporate, and you'd get a really thick block of acrylic at the bottom, and you can just peel that off and throw it in the bin as well. So this was a way of disposing of acrylics safely.